Hello and welcome back to my channel, and it seems weird to think that it has been 10 weeks since series 12 started. It's weird to think that we've had all the episodes of the series and there is now no new Doctor Who until at least Christmas at the earliest. It seems crazy. This season has gone past very quickly. Quicker than most, which I think is a good thing. I think series 11 did actually start to get a bit slow. So this series, the fact that it picked up the pace a bit, it's more exciting. It's more excited week to week for each episode is a really good sign. But in this video, I'm going to be giving my overall thoughts on the series. Last year I did a sort of ranking of the entire series, but I think that lasted nearly an hour, like if you combine the two parts that I put it together. So for this video, I will briefly touch on how I rank them, but I won't go in depth on each episode. I'll give my brief thoughts and state anything that I think has changed. But in this episode, I want to give my main thoughts on some big themes in this series. So, for example, the Timeless Child arc, the companions, the Doctor, and lots of different themes, I think, and a lot of different problems from Series 11, which I think may have improved, like for the writing, for example. And I'm going to break them down in this video. I want to start off, and since we're on the usual picture I use for the companions and the Doctor, I'm going to start by talking about the Doctor and the companions. They have all improved this season, except Ryan. Ryan and Graham, I think Graham's probably just as good, but Ryan has just sort of slipped into the beyond of nothingness. For me, he's just not done anything in the series of note. He's there. He's had some more notable scenes, but he slipped into the same sort of position Yaz was in series 11, which isn't. I mean, he's not doing anything particularly bad. He's just not doing that much. Yaz this season has really excelled, particularly in the latter half of the season. We were promised going into this series that Yasmin Khan's past would come in and there'd be a big secret she was hiding, and it was developed in one of my favourite episodes of the season, Can You Hear Me? I know a lot of people didn't like that episode. I'm quite surprised that it didn't go down as well as many people, but I have varying opinions on this series that I think quite interestingly are sometimes similar to other people, but also quite far away. For example, I haven't as enjoyed the Ark episodes as much as a lot of people have. I think Futures of the Judoon is fair enough episode. We'll get into that later, but I haven't liked the overuse of the Ark and the fact that it's very much confined to certain episodes. So you have a whole load of stuff in an episode, and then next week you'll have a very boring sort of filler episode like Praxeus, for example, which makes those episodes look bad. So, for example, a lot of people would compare Nikola Tesla's Night of Terror to Futures of the Judoon and see Nikola Tesla's Night of Terror as being boring because it doesn't have any exciting plot twists or an exciting reveal or anything. It's just a standard Doctor Who story. But that kind of, for me, those kind of stories were more beautiful and more impactful on a personal level. So I have mixed thoughts, because I know one of the key things that was missing from Series 11 that a lot of people thought was missing was the Ark. But yeah, talking of which, the Ark is very much related to Jodie Whittaker, and her performance in this season I think is better across the board. But here's the thing about season 12, is that I can go to at least three examples, maybe even four examples of actors in this season alone which I would pick for a better actor/actress to be the Doctor. In fact, they gave us a better Doctor, at least in my opinion. I will say her performance and chemistry with Sacha Dhawan as the Master is incredibly electric. It's one of the best Doctor-Master relationships, I think. Apart from, as I said, I do like Sacha Dhawan as the Master. I think he's a fantastic character in this series. I just want to briefly touch on him as well, because I'm not going to give him his own section. But I think the way he performed, for me, I've never been a fan of the John Sim Master. But this Master makes me realise why so many people like the John Sim Master. He's not the best one in my opinion, but I think he's in my top three. I think he's up there with Roger Delgado, Michelle Gomez, and that's the three, Roger Delgado and Michelle Gomez. he's up there as one of my favourite incarnations, because he does give such a he bounces off everyone in the entire, like, any character really well, and he fully embodies the perfect combination of a classic master and a new series master. Missy was more classic in my opinion, but I think the kind of iteration of the master that the new series was trying to go for from the get-go was a slightly more offset master, and this embodies both the offsetness and the potential madness of the master with the more suave, sort of almost Victorian-esque type thing that the Doctor sort of embodies. It's sort of something that comes along with any Time Lord that I think is quite interesting. But yeah, the Doctor, the thing is that Sacha Dhawan would have been a better pick for the Doctor, I think. I think he's very good as the Master, but I can't help but think that sometimes he would have been a better, as a sort of off the hinges, sort of disturbed Doctor as well, which is something we've never really seen, and he brings more character and uniqueness to the Master. I know I said in my Time as Children review it's all very similar stuff to things we've seen before, but he does it so well that it's kind of better than the stuff we've seen before, which is a good thing. Whereas Jodie Whittaker, for me, I think she's better than Series 11, but like Jo Martin is given within this series a better performance as the Master, as the Doctor, in really only one episode, because I was quite disappointed that she didn't get more to do in the Time as Children. I thought she was going to have a bigger role. I do hope that she comes back up, because there's this whole thing that I think is kind of explained. I don't know if they're going to go in more depth with it. They could go in more depth with it about the this division thing, and what was the Ruth Doctor doing? Why was Gat after her? Why did the Judoon hunt her down? I don't know. That's the only thing that, because it's not properly, like, I think it's implied that you should know what it means, that this division thing, that and that slightly older looking Gat maybe. I think it's implied that you should know from the Time as Children that it is, but I think it could be expanded on. Also, I thought Goran Vishnik, because I'm talking in depth about every character, I thought he would have been a better pick for the Doctor. I think he presents such a wonderful Doctor. And in fact, I think the way that Nikola Tesla is portrayed, even in history, is like, he seems very much like a classic Doctor. And I just thought the way he performed, the way he gave his monologues, I thought everything about his performance screamed the Doctor to me. And it was just such an amazing performance. It just felt so real. Also, I'm going to put this out there just because I thought she was great in the finale. I can't remember her name now, but the actress who was in the Sarah Jane Adventures is playing Sarah Jane. And I even think it, when I'm going back and watching the Sarah Jane Adventures, that she could be an interesting Doctor / Master / Rani Time Lord character. I did think going into the finale that she would play some kind of Time Lord character. I won't say disappointed that she wasn't a Time Lord character, because I think she was perfectly good in what she did yet. But as the Time as Children approached, she kind of seeped into irrelevance, because the Time as Child arc sort of took over. I think that was all the people I wanted to mention who I think gave star performances in this season. So yeah, I'll grant them that. But now we're going to move on to the first half, the bottom 5 of my ranking of the series. So, the bottom 5 of Series 12. This was a surprisingly hard bottom 5 to compile, to be honest, because these 5 episodes, apart from Orphan 55, which is on its own plane of awfulness, these 5 episodes are mostly on the same level, I'd imagine, to be honest, and they're quite close together, particularly 8 through 6 are all very close together in quality for me. But Orphan 55 is a no-brainer to me, because it is just dreadful. I haven't really rewatched it since it broadcast. I think I rewatched it once just before Nikola Tesla, but it wasn't enjoyable at all, even on a rewatch. Ascension of the Cybermen and Praxis both have the same thing in common for me, is that they're just mainly very boring and dull. And I don't think they'll really age well on a rewatch, especially given that Ascension of the Cybermen ended up being pretty much irrelevant to what happens in The Time as Children, which is next up after Praxis. Praxis is just dull. Nothing really eventful happens. I think it would have been better if either the Sea Devils or the Autons had turned up, and that might have made it slightly more eventful. Even then, I wouldn't imagine it being much higher than a 6 or a 7, even if that had happened. The Timeless Children is a difficult one, because I think the idea of multiple incarnations has settled down with me before William Hartnell, and I think I've come to the conclusion that it's not that I dislike about the decision that Chris Chibnall made. I think I can get over the fact that there were incarnations before William Hartnell, because, to be honest, it had been hinted at by multiple incarnations before this episode aired. But the thing that bugs me is that they've made the Doctor, which is just supposed to be some random Time Lord. We're not supposed to really know anything about it, because that's the mystery, the ethos of the show. And then they've gone and made her the most important Time Lord ever. That's the thing that I have problem with. Yes, I know the Doctor's supposed to be hinted at being this big Time Lord, but I'd rather it wasn't, like, outrightly said, because it would be like saying the Doctor's name. It's the same thing as saying that to me. So I would rather they hadn't gone there. But I can forgive them for doing it. I probably won't. I did find it more enjoyable than a lot of series finales that happened during the Stephen Moffat era, to be fair. Wedding of Rip Song for one, or Hellbent, to be honest. And I just think it was pretty eventful, and it had me on the edge of my seat. But I don't think I'll revisit it or Ascension of the Cybermen before Revolution of the Daleks, because they're not particularly good anyway. And Fugitive of the Judoon, I've moved up half a percentage point, because it's better than the finale. Yeah, I know, it's better than the finale. I've rewatched it a lot across the entire series, and I think that's down to Jo Martin's performance as Ruth and the Doctor. And the combination of the Judoon and obviously Captain Jack. Even though I do feel Captain Jack was misplaced, and I really hope that he is in Revolution of the Daleks, I think his performance is still exceptional. He still has got it as Captain Jack. I just hope that he's given an actual episode, because the problem I have with Future of the Judoon is he's a glorified cameo, and I just want him to be part of a story rather than just popping up for fan service. And I really hope we see Jo Martin again, because she's so much better than Jodie Whittaker, and I'd love to see a whole series with her as the Doctor, or an entire era as her as the Doctor. I'm sure Big Finish will probably do that, but I really hope we haven't seen the last of the Ruth Doctor, because she's amazing. I thought about it, and to be honest, I think her performance surpasses a lot of previous incarnations that are in my list of favourite Doctors. Like, for me, she's better than Jon Pertwee. I know that's a controversial statement. I know she's better than Matt Smith for me. She's probably better than Christopher Eccleston as well for me. I'm not going to commit to any other answers, but I would probably say she's better than Sylvester McCoy for me as well. So she'd be reasonably high up in a list of favourite Doctors. She's not one of the best Doctors, but I mean, well, if she was given an entire era of the show, I think she'd be a serious contender for one of the best Doctors. But that's my opinion. But that's the bottom 5. Let's move on to the top 5. And here we have it, the top 5. Again, much like the bottom 5, very consistent, which is something that was missing from Series 11. Series 11 seemed to be all over the place. Sometimes it was good, sometimes it was awful. The only one that isn't really reasonably close to the result above it is Orphan 55, which is 40% between Ascension of the 40% difference between it and Ascension of the Cybermen. But here, number 5 and number 4, I'm going to talk about them as a story as a whole. It's the opening 2-parter, Spyfall. I've noticed a lot online, a lot of people seem to prefer Spyfall Part 1 over Spyfall Part 2. I think this is probably just personal preference, because I like historical stories more. But I really like the historical elements. I think the inclusion of Ada Lovelace and Noor Inayat Khan were both incredible. I liked how they had Ada Lovelace, and then a couple of weeks later they had Lord Byron, who's of course Lord Byron is of course the father of Ada Lovelace, which I think nice to have that sort of connection between the two episodes. The story as a whole, the first part for me just seems like your standard kind of special, like over the top sort of. I knew it was good because but this episode went out on New Year's Day, so there was always going to be some kind of like theme to it, in the way that Dr. Mysterio has the whole superhero vibe to it. And I'd say this episode's sort of on par with that episode, the first part at the very least. The second part is more getting into the series. You have more involvement in the arc, and sort of the more nitty-gritty, down to business with the series. Like, this second part wasn't pulling any punches. It was serious, dark drama for the Doctor, which is something a lot of people wanted from Series 11 when the Doctor was just happy bubbly. I was pleased to see it in Part 2. So by the end of Part 2, I was completely satisfied with it. Whereas with it, by the end of Part 1, I had some qualms. I wasn't quite sure. But I think as a whole, they still rank quite well as a story. Yeah, I think it's a pretty solid story, to be fair. And a good opener to the series. I think it really set the stage for the rest of the series quite well. I think there were some pretty good performances throughout, to be fair. Can You Hear Me, which is, I've noticed a lot of people haven't liked that one as much either. My list sort of differs from a lot of people. A lot of people have, Future the Jadoon, Time's Children, etc. So I'm sort of higher up, but I've kept them sort of lower down. I haven't really liked the arc that much. I've liked the more individual stories like Can You Hear Me, to be honest. Can You Hear Me has a very strong message and it speaks to everyone. I really love the message of Can You Hear Me. The only thing is that I realised that sort of afterwards that the whole Zelen thing and the bit on the ship, that I kind of wish that it hadn't been so much of a focus and that it had focused more on the Zelen character on Earth. And the mental health problems affecting the characters. I think it could have done it so well. Or if this had been an arc over an entire series, I've always wanted, I think, what an incredible idea would be to have a companion who has a mental health issue and her way of dealing with it would be the Doctor, and that would be a sort of therapy throughout the series. I think it would make for an incredible art to have that character to go from being so unsure of herself at the start, or himself at the start of a series, and then to growing across the series along with the Doctor, in the same way that Ace sort of grows across from being the rebellious teenager to being an empowered character by the end of her series, her run of episodes. I mean, the difference between Ace at the start of Dragonfire and her at the end of Survival, she has an incredible character arc, and one of the best character arcs of the classic era at the very least. So I'd love to see something similar on the same lines as Can You Hear Me in the new series. I think it could really work. Moving on to the second place, I still really like Nikola Tesla's Night of Terror. Again, personal preference, I love historicals. In fact, the top two of this ranking are historicals. Nikola Tesla's Night of Terror doesn't have as much of a rewatchability factor as I'd like it to be, but it still holds up as very solid. I think there's some great performances from the entire cast throughout. Goran Vishnik really needs to get a bit bigger role on Doctor Who. He really does. They could do a Caecilius thing, where Caecilius was obviously this guy in Fires of Pompeii, and then Peter Capaldi was obviously the Doctor. If they did that again with Goran Vishnik, I would not mind, because he's such an incredible actor, and he screams the Doctor for me. He really does. It'd be incredible to see him as the Doctor. I really think so. And then in top place, The Haunting of Villa Diodati. The only thing that is keeping this from being 10 out of 10 for me is that the series finale doesn't deliver. It's so atmospheric. The costume design, the setting, the script, the sets, everything is just so rich and so well thought out. And you can tell they've thought about every single detail in the sets and the costumes. And even to having the Cyberman turn up and being this almost Frankensteinian type Cyberman, this combination of different, you can see the Cyberman's face and the discarded bits of different Cybermen all thrown together into one design. I mean, if you look at it, it's not a warrior class Cyberman, it's not a Nightmare in Silver Cyberman, it's not a Cyber Cyberman, it's a combination of all those parts put together. And it's such an incredible idea to have that design. I think the design of the Lone Cyberman has grown on me throughout the finale. I really liked the Lone Cyberman, actually, and when I got to when he was just pushed aside in episode 10, I was quite disappointed. It's like he was really starting to get me interested in this character and its backstory, and you just shrunk him. But that's the only reason that's keeping this from being a 10 out of 10, and it annoys me because there aren't any 10 out of 10s in this season for me, which is a shame, because at least in series 11 Rosa got 10 out of 10. But I really think if the season finale had delivered, this could have been up there with episodes like Utopia and what's the other? There's no other 3-part finales, but I really think it could have been like Utopia. Maybe even better than Utopia, because Utopia for me isn't it's not great, but it's pretty decent saying for the stage. It's pretty good. But this is just so great in its setting, and I really like it. Okay, let's talk about the writing this series. Chris Chibnall, the showrunner of this series, I think he provided his best script with Spyfall, but also his worst script with... Oh wait, no, he didn't write Orphan 55. No, sorry, he hasn't provided his worst script. There are worse episodes run by Chris Chibnall. But he's provided a finale which is an improvement on the series 12 finale. The Timeless Child arc is very interesting one, which I think is probably going to get continued across the Jodie Whittaker era. I don't know how I'll feel about it by the end of it, but I mean, it will be a thing, I'm sure. I'm sure we'll get to see more about this Timeless Child arc. I'm not sure how I'll feel about the rest of the Timeless Child arc, but we'll see. But the writing in this series has generally been better. I think new writer Maxine Alberton, who wrote Haunting of Villa Diodati, was obviously a highlight. She topped my list of episodes that I really liked this series. The writer of Nikola Tesla's Night of Terror, fantastic writer again, very well written, very well structured. Pete Matigue let us down this year with Orphan 55. I really think he could have done better here. Vinay Patel, I think Fugitive of the Judoon is a very solid story, but I think it's mainly plagued by the fact that it's got so much going on for me. I feel like there's just too much going on with Captain Jack, the Ruth Doctor, and the Judoon. I think it should have just been the Judoon and then the Ruth Doctor and not have this whole thing with Captain Jack. I think it was just a glorified cameo. As much as I'm pleased to have Captain Jack back, I just wish that hadn't been a thing. But I think in most part that's a very well written story. The guy who wrote Can You Hear Me, big props to you. You covered an incredibly important issue there. I can't remember who wrote Praxeus, but that was pretty dull. Yeah, so the writing in the most part has improved, I'd say. Minus a couple of stunts in the board there. Okay, directing and sort of set design and visual effects are all on point again still here. I think the only point that I really had a problem with the visual effects was the sort of imaginary created monster from Can You Hear Me at the start of that episode in Aleppo. I thought that looked a bit off, but apart from that, I think every episode is sort of stunning. I noticed someone said on Twitter that there's a sort of grain on the film can, like on the style, but I think it's like a filter or something over it, whereas if you look at series 10 it's a lot clearer, which has resulted in the fact that there is actually no HD photographs, I believe, of Captain Jack from Fugitive of the Judoon. So it's a bit, I mean, it's a stylistic choice, and I think most of the time it does work. I think it was mainly, to be honest, I think the only time it hasn't worked is the Captain Jack sequence. So on that front, I guess it's a bit worse than Series 11. I would rank Series 11 in terms of production values as probably being above this. Without having said that, all the sets for Gallifrey in The Timeless Children were fantastic. It was very true to the classic series, but also with a hint of the modern series. But they all looked fantastic. The cyber ship also looked very nice. Lots of different references to lots of different eras of Cybermen designs there, with the big blue light, for example, being like the chest unit. I thought that was a very nice look. The spaceship from Praxeus looked the same as it did in the trailer, and the trailer looked a bit off, but it still looked quite decent. The Judoon ship was vastly improved. I watched Smith and Jones just before. Just after watching Fugitive of the Judoon, and I realised how naff the original Judoon ships looked in comparison. But apart from that, every shot has looked beautiful. Particularly, I think the best looking story is probably Spyfall. Mainly because it doesn't involve many big shots of like big spaceships or whatever. It's a very much like a big spy movie, and there's lots of lovely shots of Paris and war-torn Paris. There's the lovely shots in the vineyard, which are a bit like Picard, which I've just been watching on Amazon Prime, the new Star Trek series. But it all looks fantastic. Every shot most of the time looks fantastic. The war-torn ravages of Earth on both Orphan 55 and, I guess, in Ascension of the Cybermen. Maybe Orphan 55 is post-Ascension of the Cybermen, I guess, at this point. What else is there that I really liked in the score? Most of the time, Surpass is just as good as Series 12. I'd probably peg it just below, because I thought the new theme for the Cybermen was a bit It was a bit off. I didn't really like it, but I did think the new theme for the Master was fantastic. I vastly prefer the new theme for the Master over Murray Gold's theme for the Master, although it's never gotten up to this is Gallifrey, this is our home levels of music. It's never been that good, but I mean, the Master theme was very good. I thought the lovely spy twists on the music in Spyfall were very nice. I love how Sigal Akala, back on the Master theme, I loved how he sort of intertwined the beats, the quintessential beats of the Master's theme, but sort of tweaked them to the sort of atmosphere of the scene. It was especially noticeable if you go to the scene in the Master's sort of hut. You notice that the beats are the same, but like the composition, the different instruments they use are very different. It's a much softer approach rather than the much harder, louder composition that you hear towards the cliffhanger of Spyfall Part 1. But yeah, I think all that side of it, the set design, particularly in Haunting of Villa Diodati, perhaps is probably the best. Apart from the score, I think the weakest score is actually Haunting of Villa Diodati. But I think apart from that, the costumes, everything. The period costumes for Yaz in particular were lovely in both Haunting of Villa Diodati and in Nikola Tesla Night of Terror on that front. Also, Graham's and Ryan's costumes in Haunting Villa Diodati and in Nikola Tesla Night of Terror are both very nice. Yeah, so that's the that side of it. I'm going to move on to a different topic. I'm going to talk about diversity, which was an interesting topic in Series 11. A lot of people thought there was the way it was done was probably done in the wrong way. I have always thought that there's been a thing about Doctor Who and diversity. Bill Potts was a fantastic character in Series 10. We've had Martha Jones. We've had lots of dibble-dabbles in this kind of thing. Series 11 was sort of the first time that they ever tried to do anything that big. And to a certain extent, a lot of the time it was done very well, but a lot of the time it wasn't done very well. This season we've had some fantastic new characters and some fantastic new actors take the reins of different roles under this sort of new status quo that Chris Chibnall has created. So we've had Sacha Dhawan as the Master, who gives a fantastic performance again, as I mentioned, and Jo Martin as the Doctor, the first ever Doctor of Colour, is fantastic. She really steals the role and makes it her own. We also have a lovely couple in Praxius, which, I mean, to think that just a few episodes earlier you had a guy who just turned up and waved and said basically he was gay and then was exterminated. You have that kind of tokenism, and then you have a very nice... I don't have a problem with you instituting diversity into a show as long as you do it with a reason and with it's necessary to the story. And in this case, it was necessary to the story and they did it well and tastefully. Whereas in Series 11, it was very much forced and sort of just it felt out of place. But here it really worked and meshed with all the different stories. So yeah, I think they're the key points I want to talk about for the series. Different issues that I think most of the time it's actually evolved from Series 11 as being better. So this, in a way, feels like a better version of Series 11, and I have more positive thoughts coming out of it. I'm going to talk about the series overall now. So overall, Doctor Who Series 12, it's been a bit interesting one. Doctor Who, I think, has been tired for a long time, let's face it. It hasn't been that long since we had the last great story. I mean, for me, the last great story was Rose, but before that, you have to think, before that, probably a long time since we had a properly great story. Maybe that Series 10 finale is an exception to that rule again, but like most of the time, Doctor Who has been a bit meh. Series 11 was a bit abnormal in the sense that I think a lot of us felt that it probably was a bit more, no, that's not very good, than meh. So to go back to a series which is mainly meh again, I think, to be honest, more like the Capaldi seasons, it's interesting to me because I don't think we'll probably get a series as good as the RTD era again, at least for me. I know a lot of people like the Jodie Whittaker era, and I don't want to hate on them because I think if you're enjoying a show, then no thing should stop you from enjoying that, even other people's opinions. don't argue with people over opinions. I mean, your opinion is your opinion. But, I mean, if you really enjoy this stuff, then that's good. That means the showrunners are doing a good job. I mean, you can't expect a showrunner to appease everyone. And I know there are certain people who will never be appeased with Doctor Who ever again, just for the sake that it has a female Doctor in it. But to be honest, I think this series has made serious strides to improve, and I admire Chris Chibnall for that. I really do admire him for at least trying, because he could have kept on going with Series 11's sort of structure, and he would have probably gone away with it. The BBC wouldn't have batted an eyelid. But I think in a sense, I think he has listened to the fans, and he has given a series that I have liked the majority of. I have at least liked the majority of. Sure, there aren't many great episodes this season. I think more than half is just about average. But, I mean, to have some pretty decent episodes in this series with some pretty bold ideas is very commendable. And I have enjoyed this series more than I think I was expecting to. I'm certainly more pleased with this series than I have been with more recent seasons as well. Overall, though, it's pretty decent. Most of the stories I think were good. I think the only story I think I've had major problems with, really, is Orphan 55. I have problems with Time's Children, but I think I'll be able to get over them, except the fact that the Doctor was made basically the most important Time Lord ever. I don't think I'll probably be able to get over that ever, because it's basically, for me, it's ruined a lot of the mystery and a lot of the imagination that you can think about. There's a big gap that's been filled there that I think it was fun for fans to be able to fill that gap with their own fan fiction or their own ideas. And now you can't do that anymore. You can't do that with Doctor Who anymore, because there's now an answer that's been given. There is now pretty much an answer to Doctor Who. We now know who he is. Well, he/she. We don't know her name, sure, but we know who he is. We know that person. We know their origins. And that's something I don't think you should have done until you were intending to cancel the show. And who knows, maybe this arc is going to span over Series 13 and it will resolve in Doctor Who ending, but, I mean, I don't think it's likely. But this series as a whole has been far more enjoyable than Series 11. I've actually ranked it reasonably high up on my list. I gave it the number 8 space, which is not bad, I think. It's pretty decent. It's below most of the Matt Smith era, and I will come out and say this, I've enjoyed the Jodie Whittaker era more than most of the Matt Smith era. There is one series that is above this series. I'm sure you can imagine which one. I might do an updated list of my top 10 favourite 12 seasons, ranking them, because it has slightly changed. I managed to go through my entire Link Book score because I got bored and decided to give each episode a score out of 10 and work out their averages. Talking of which, the average for this season is 6.45 out of 10 for each episode, which I think sums up the season. It's quite close to Series 11's, which was 6.2 out of 10, but it's managed to achieve, because I'm a geek and sad, I like to do these Rotten Tomato type score things, because I think it's a nice way to have your enjoyment factor of the episodes have a percentage, and I like the little tomatoes and little squidges on the Rotten Tomatoes score. So this score is 65%, which is obviously fresh by the Rotten Tomatoes score, which I think is fair enough. I think it's good. I think a 65 is pretty solid. It's a fresh tomato. It's a fresh tomato from me. I have enjoyed this series. I think I have a couple of qualms with the story arc, and as you'll notice, the story arc episodes are quite low down for me. But I'll see how it goes in Series 13. But I think Doctor Who is now, although the ratings, I decided to leave the ratings out of this video because they have gone worse. We dropped below 3 million on the overnight. We dropped below 4 million on the overnights, and a couple of episodes have performed under 5 million in 7 days, which isn't good. I won't lie to you, it's not good. I believe the series finale of Doctor Who got 3.78 million viewers, and Antiques Roadshow got 4.41 million, I believe, and I believe Countryfile got 4.44, which is not good. I won't lie, that is not good news. But to be honest, for the show, the quality of the show is not affected by the ratings. I think it's better for the show to write good stories than to think about the ratings. I certainly hope they don't go back to what Series 11 was doing just because the ratings are low now, because Series 11 wasn't good. And I don't think the reason viewers tuned out for this is because of series 11, because everything changed. I think it's because no one cared anymore by the end of series 11. I mean, you'll see it. There's a massive ratings drop from episode 1 of series 11 to Resolution. This isn't really that much of a drop from Resolution, to be honest. It's about 2 million drop, which is quite a bit. But if you look at the start of the series, it was only like a couple of 100,000 viewers underneath, which is pretty bad, admittedly. But it's not the end of the world. But yeah, I have enjoyed this series. I won't lie, I've enjoyed it more than I've disliked it, which is always a good sign with the Doctor Who series. And I think I'll end it there, because I think I have pretty solidly enjoyed this season. It's not the best. It was never going to be the best. I don't think Christian Moore could achieve legendary status from me, I'm afraid. But I really do like this. I think it's a pretty solid series, and I'm sure I'll revisit a couple of these stories, which, unlike series 11, I didn't really revisit any of the stories. But yeah, pretty solid season overall, I'd say. Yeah, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening/day, and thanks for watching. And remember to subscribe down below if you like this video. Like the video. Leave your comments on series 12. You can talk about series 11 if you want to, but I mean, it's a long way away, and we've got a long time till Revolution of the Daleks to go. So I'm sure there'll be lots of exciting content for you to look forward to on my channel. But anyway, thanks for watching, and goodbye.